This is not about a blow dryer, and if you thought it was, well, buckle up, Buttercup, because these conversations are hotter than that flat iron you're still wondering if you left on. I'm Kat, a hairstylist, educator, and one of the beauty industry's beautifully defiant misfits. This podcast isn't about viral hair trends, client bashing, or the latest formula for whatever shade of brown we're renaming this season. It's about the stories, the lessons, and the trial and error moments that shape careers, confidence, and the craft. So whether you're starting your journey in Cosmo School, thriving behind the chair, still finding your rhythm, or just looking for that push to get back on track, welcome to This Is Not About a Blow Dryer, where we talk beauty in a whole new way. Welcome back to This Is Not About a Blow Dryer, where we share the stories, lessons, and have the conversations to help leave this industry better than we found it. As per usual, I'm Kat, here to help guide those conversations and hopefully get you thinking in a different direction. This week, we were supposed to talk about something completely different and continue our series of Confessions of an Apprentice by going into our education portion. But full transparency, with everything coming out in the world right now, everything just feels really, really heavy. And I find that the conversations that we could be having are a little bit more geared towards that and the things that we can do, as people that consistently work with others and tend to absorb a lot of everybody's energy behind the chair and how we touch people and how we communicate with people. I find that it's really easy for us to, honestly, get to the point where we kind of want to disassociate, shut down, and it's not necessarily something that we can do. I know personally, I've been sitting in this swirl of we go rage, we go sadness, frustration, then full-blown kind of burnout mode. And I know other stylists are experiencing it. And instead, I want us to channel that and use it to do what we do best, which is to be helpers. And I know I got myself out of it because this whole thing got me thinking about something I experienced years ago that completely changed how I'm processing this moment right now. So for the past 10 years, I have worked with an organization called the Justice and Soul Foundation. And I wish I could tell you that I was out hunting for this mission, but in all reality, it kind of just found me. Now, at the time, I was volunteering locally a lot with the YWCA food banks. I was working with an organization called the Beyond Project that works with an array of people from unhoused teens, single moms, women's shelters. And basically what we do is provide haircuts to help them in their next step, whether that's interviewing, back to school, whatever that looks like. Nonetheless, I became close with one of the founders, and she encouraged me to check out the Justice and Soul Foundation. She knew me well enough to say, hey, there's this organization that is locally based, and they're doing a hair and fashion show fundraiser. It's right up your alley. You should get the salon to sign up. You should do it. All I really knew was it was a local salon owner that had put it together for kids in needs. It involved hair, and there was a fashion show, so I was in. Another stylist at the salon partnered with me, and she was a lot more well-versed in cool editorial hair. But I had an eye for detail, and together we just built this really cool show that had music, wardrobe, a full vision. If you're watching on YouTube, you're probably seeing the picture. Honestly, it's one of my favorite shows to look back on. So the day of the show happened, and they actually played a video about what their mission is. Their mission was to help at-risk youth and victims of sex trafficking by teaching them how to do hair, giving them this trade. And now over in Phnom Penh, they don't necessarily have to get licensed and certified the way we do with a certain hours. And you literally could just buy a pair of shears and start cutting hair on the street. But what we wanted to do was provide the opportunity to teach structured foundational techniques to really empower these students to build a career and build a path that could help them grow in a different direction. It's essentially a paid apprenticeship to help them kickstart a new beginning, so there's no need to have to leave because you have to work to provide. It's part of the job. I want to say the video was about 10 minutes long. And at the end of the video, I remember looking at my partner at the time, and I was like, I need to go there. 5 months later, I was on a plane by myself to Cambodia to go volunteer to teach for a month. When I got to Phnom Penh, the city actually felt really familiar because it reminded me of where my family's from in El Salvador. I got in late and I remember being picked up in a tuk-tuk by one of the instructors. And she kind of just prepped me on what class would look like the next day. It was so impressive and just so inspiring to see, these kids learning in this kind of environment and just so hungry to learn. At times in retrospect, it almost felt borderline comical how skilled they were because they only knew proper and foundational techniques. And I say that because the director or the cutting director at the time, or the gal that was running the education, was also Sassoon based in hair cutting. And so it was very familiar to me. And we were able to connect really closely on, just some of the cultural things that go into hair cutting and how we teach hair cutting. And I just remember seeing some of the most pristine and perfect straight line bobs right off the bat. And it was really neat to see them be so excited. But at the same time that you knew you were doing something so incredible, I will share with you that hearing even pieces of what some of these kids went through was heartbreaking. I mean, and I'm talking about, mid to late teens, or things that they experienced even as preteens, now being late teenagers and sharing this. But what really shook me and changed my perspective was that it wasn't just about the trauma. It was actually about the gratitude they chose to live in. So a typical morning in the school actually started with gratitude. Everybody would say something they were grateful for. And if you want a wake-up call on perspective, that was going to be it. I remember somebody once saying that they were grateful to have a safe place to sleep. You'd think that's where the story ended, but it was actually because they woke up hearing somebody sleeping on the streets, screaming and being taken. And even that little bit of guilt that they felt for not being able to go help that person without endangering themselves. And that kind of story absorbs into your DNA and changes the way that you think about things and how you want to help people. It gives you this motivation of, I maybe can't change that, but I can help here. An important note I really want to hit on is that as educators, you hear something like that and you want to cry. You want to see if there's something you can do. It's very reminiscent to probably how a lot of us are feeling right now, hearing so much of the crap that we're hearing right now. But one of the things that we were really trained on was to not emotionally react when students shared their trauma. You don't gasp, don't break down, don't cry. Don't have a dramatic sympathy moment where you want to hug and embrace. Because if you do that, you make them responsible for now your emotions. And the ultimate goal was to create safety, stability, and structure. Needless to say, you are prepped on finding ways to keep yourself grounded. I know personally, I was working out twice a day. I was meditating constantly. I was regulating myself regularly because I needed to be steady for them. And it was not only a moment for me to learn and really inform myself of things that go on in this world, but really create a safe space for people who have actually had to go through it. As inspired as I was by going and doing this, it was such a wake-up call that this wasn't about me feeling inspired. It was about them feeling safe. And that's something I keep thinking about right now, because if we want to help, we have to regulate first. The reality of the situation is I couldn't undo what had happened to them, but I was able to be a part of what could happen next. I was able to help them rewrite the next chapter of their story and what happened next for them. So that was back in 2016. And I do still see some of their Facebook posts here and there. And I know some of the students now own salons and do similar work helping others. I've seen some of them work on television shows in Cambodia and soap operas, which is incredible. Some of them went off and built their own families and still do hair as a gig. And most of them actually, I think, are still behind the chair. And that is incredible. That's what our trade can do. We can create skills that create stability, structure, and a path forward, because what we do is so much bigger than hair. This craft is not that small. So, with everything happening right now, with all of the heaviness in the air, I don't want to just sit in the rage. And I definitely don't want to freeze. I want to channel that into what I know how to do. And I know personally, I'm really good at connecting people. I'm really good at teaching, and I'm good at helping people build something. We don't necessarily have to fix the whole world, but we can move in a direction of what you're skilled in. And I want you to think about that when you're behind the chair, when you're connecting with your clients, when you're thinking, how else can I get involved? Build into your strengths. If we want to help, we have to regulate ourselves and stay grounded and stable and not allow ourselves to freeze. Because at the end of the day, I couldn't undo what happened to them. I couldn't change how their story started, but I could be a part of how their story goes next and that next chapter. We don't just do hair. Our craft isn't small. We are so important in so many different ways, and we have to channel that. So again, with everything happening right now, with all the heaviness in the air, I challenge you to not just sit in that rage. Don't freeze. Don't disassociate. Regulate yourself. Help take care of yourself, yes, but then channel that into what we know how to do and what we're really good at. And that's helping people. There have been years where I haven't been able to be as involved with the organization as I wanted to, but I've connected them with vendors and people that I know that would be open to donating or raffling off items for like their next upcoming fundraiser, or honestly, sometimes just donating some money because I haven't been able to be there. But finding a way to really help in every little way that you can and build your strength so that we can move in the direction of what you're most skilled at. The way that we can really be powerhouses and really help create a mark in this world is we can be helpers. We can use our skill and share our skill to be helpers and help change other people's stories. And that, I think, is such a superpower. And if this is one of those conversations that's like really sparking something in you, I encourage you to get involved. I encourage you to share your voice. Find organizations around you that you can help and contribute to, whether you're giving away free haircuts, whether you're going and teaching and volunteering time, whatever it is. The Justice and Soul Foundation is actually having a dinner fundraiser that's happening March 9th in Seattle at the Phoenician restaurant. If you're local, buy a ticket, bring your team, sponsor a table, add some donations, learn more about it, just show up. And if you're not local, you can always donate the cost of what you would spend on the dinner, or you can just donate here and there and just help support these organizations that are doing the work. If massive dinners like that are a little bit of a social anxiety moment, and you're like, you know what, that's not my avenue. I know they've also partnered with Salon Services and Moroccan Oil, and they're doing a class where 100% of the proceeds go directly to the organization. So get your learn on and help a cause. You can get educated, invest in your craft, and directly support students rebuilding their lives. So multitask. We love that for us. You don't necessarily have to book a flight to Cambodia immediately and go volunteer your time, but you can attend, you can donate, you can share, you can maybe even host a small fundraiser in your salon. I know that's something that I'm working towards. I would love to host a small fundraiser. Let me know if you'd be open to coming and attending that. Or simply just start about trauma-informed services in your space. There's always going to be a way to move, and there's always going to be a way to help. So let's help to our superpower and let's not freeze. I know personally, I don't have the answers to everything that's happening right now, but I do know that freezing doesn't build anything and panic won't contribute either. But skill does, structure does, and community does. And if you're feeling that kind of drain happening for you, move that somewhere else. Don't allow yourself to get stuck and be proactive. There's always a way to move and move forward. If you know of an organization that I don't know about, please add them in the comments. If you've had an experience that has changed how you look at this and can also help create growth and change, reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you and have you on the show. and love to continue to get exposure to some of these places and continue to help in a way that I know how. This itself is not one conversation that's going to be one and done. We're probably going to end up talking about this quite a bit. And if I need to reframe this entire podcast to be this kind of awareness, I'm down for that, because this is where I think the voices need to be heard. This is where we need to be. And this is where we come together and we start to make an impact where it matters most. Feeling that energy, do not let it drain you. Move it somewhere useful. I'll go ahead and link the Justice and Soul information for the March 9th and the March 16th event in the show notes below. If you're not in the Seattle area, no sweat. I'll add some links on where you can also donate or learn more about ways to help and also get involved with Justice and Soul. And if you're still listening, thank you so much for being part of another conversation that's not about a blow dryer. I'll see you soon.